Good morning, good morning. Welcome. This is Jamaica Live. We're on Bridge 99. We're broadcasting from studios in Kingston, Jamaica. But we're also linking with Irie Jam in New York. And we're in a different time slot today, Jamaica time. We normally go from 11 to 1. As of today, we start at 12 and we go until 2 to synchronize with New York. Their daylight saving time change. So it also means that I can link with Beauregard right now. Beauregard, are you there? Not there yet. Okay. All right, we talk with him later, but we're on the same time now as New York. So welcome once again. Beginning of September. We're approaching the fall, the autumn, although we hardly know the difference from one season to the next. But before long, we're going to be approaching Christmas. What a way time flies. But that is it. Jamaica Live, we're on Bridge 99. Professional sports is an industry. It has a market. Players are bought and sold. And the highest bidder normally wins the day. Something of the same sort is happening in our schools, particularly in our high schools. Achievement in sports is seen as a marker for a school that is considered to be doing well. Never mind that academically it may be struggling. Success in sports, especially athletics and football, is what draws the crowd and grabs the headlines, and perhaps, most importantly, the lucrative financial sponsorship and contributions. Just look at the turnout and the excitement at boys and girls champs each year. And in order to excel or to keep excelling in sports, some schools are constantly scouting around to lure, to entice promising athletes or footballers from other schools. So for example, a student does well in a Class 3 event at Champs this year. And by the time he gets to Class 2, he's representing a different school, because that school thief him. There has been much debate about this issue. It is fair, well, one argument that has to be addressed is whether it is fair to the school whose promising athlete or footballer is snatched away, robbing that school of the chance to grab some of the headlines for itself. Is it fair to the other students who work and study hard but find that a recruit from another school who doesn't too much bother with the study, but he or she becomes the flavor of the month, the flavor of every month? He or she gets all the attention and gets a bly when he or she doesn't perform well academically. What psychological effect does it have on the student? A young teenager who finds that he is essentially a piece of merchandise for which there is a demand and a price that the school establishment is willing to pay. This really is not a new phenomenon, you know. It was going on from I was a student at Jamaica College. JC recruited a football coach, Derek Tompkinson, an Englishman who JC actually snatched from Weir Technical. He had played professional football for Chesterfield and Leyton Orient. And he adopted the practice in English professional football of recruiting good footballers wherever you could find them. So he embarked on a plan where he would identify good footballers in other schools and he would try to lure them, to entice them to come to JC. And I remember people like Warwick Lynn, who he took from St. George's College, Alvin James from Monroe, the Webb brothers from St. Jago, Derrick and Everton, or Bunny and Baba as we used to call them, Extal Mignot from Cornwall College. They all ended up at JC on the Manning Cup team. And the Manning Cup team did well. Won the Manning Cup, I think, for 3 years in succession. An old schoolmate of mine, this time from St. George's College, Dr. Lascelles Graham. Everybody knows him as Muggy. That's what I knew him as at school. He was a brilliant Manning Cup footballer. And he went on to captain the Jamaica national football team. Muggy has been waging a relentless crusade against the poaching of students for sports purposes. He has been doing that for, more than 10 years. He argues that this practice is nefarious, that it robs the weaker schools of the assets that would enable them to become stronger, that it perpetuates and exacerbates the inequality among schools and their outcomes, that it corrupts the values that we ought to be inculcating in our students. It does all of those things, and all of those things he feels are wrong and should be avoided. Muggy is going to be joining us shortly, and we're going to explore these concerns that he has been campaigning about. But on the other hand, some argue that there are other things that ought to be considered. Athletic ability, whether in track and field or football, or in any other sport, can be a pathway to success. It can be a career opportunity and can be very rewarding. Just look at our athletes, like Usain Bolt, Shelley and Fraser Price, Elaine Thompson-Herah. They are millionaires, multi-millionaires. Let's say that in their early years they were attending a school that didn't have a robust sports program, didn't have accomplished coaches, didn't have a well-equipped gym for training, didn't have the financial support that past students provide to some of the other schools. Do we not blight their prospects if we insist that they must not be poached? They must not be given the opportunity to transfer to a school that has all these facilities. They must stay where they are. Limited though those facilities are, and which limitations may in fact prevent them from becoming the international stars and the international success that they have the potential to be. And when they fail to develop their athletic skills because we block their path so that they can't become millionaires like Bolt and Fraser Price, what do we say to them and their families who would have been able to live in a good house, drive a nice car, acquire lucrative endorsements and sponsorships, have money in the bank, have far greater opportunities for advancement and be treated as heroes wherever in the world they go? Part of Muggy's argument is that Usain Bolt attended William Knibb High School, not a Tapanari school by conventional standards. Many people didn't even know about William Knibb High School until Usain Bolt's success brought it to their attention. But he excelled. and became the fastest man in the world, the fastest man in history. He holds the world record for both 100 meters and 200 meters. But is he an exception? How many other Usain Bolts are trapped in schools that, for no fault of their own, cannot move them to higher heights? Another part of Muggy's argument is that by robbing these underrated schools of powerful athletes, we deny them the opportunity to develop and to progress, to be competitive with the KCs and the JCs and the Calabars. The big question that I think we have to consider is, whose interest must come first? Is it the interest of the athlete or the interest of the school? This is the topic that we're going to be discussing today, the poaching of student athletes. Should it be allowed to continue? If not, how do we put a stop to it? And it's perhaps appropriate that we're going to begin the discussion today with the person who more than anybody else has brought this matter front and center for discussion. And I'm referring to Dr. Lascelles Graham, as I said, brilliant Manning Cup player in his day at St. George's College, who went on to become, he was a lecturer in chemistry, I believe, at the University of the West Indies, now retired, was captain of the Jamaica national football team, what we now call the Reggae Boys. So he's someone who comes with an enormous perspective in terms of his background to help us with this issue. Dr. Lascelles Graham. Muggy, how are you?
I'm quite fine, Mr. Golding. A little nervous, of course, because, you have dragged me into the heavyweight division.
Which heavyweight division?
And I'm a featherweight, eh?
Listen, man, when Dennis
say anything that's out of character, understand it's just nerves. I'm really a nice guy.
When Dennis Zadie was passing the ball to you never get nervous that time.
No, that was my area of expertise.
Oh no, but this is another area of expertise. Muggy, this business of poaching of student athletes, this is something you've been writing about for a long time.
Definitely.
Give us your perspective.
All right. The first thing I'd like to say, there are some misconceptions out there about me and what I stand for and so on. The first thing I would like to say is that I have nothing against the coaches of these school teams. Okay? The coach is just, an employee of these institutions or schools. And so the coach has to do what the coach has been instructed to do. And, the coach builds his reputation by way of winnings, the number of ticks he can get into that win box. And so I have nothing against any coach. I don't blame at all the student who is recruited or the parent or guardian. They're trying to get whatever they can in as short a time as possible. So nothing against them. My quarrel, my grouse, my anger, my sadness is directed solely at the administrators, the boards, the Ministry of Education, ISA, and the officials of our schools. So I want to make that perfectly clear. A coach cannot bring one boy into a school. He doesn't have the authority for that. All right? So it's the school officials that do it.
But aren't you letting the coaches off the hook? Because I'm sure that they are the ones who go out and do the spotting. I'm sure that they are the ones who exert pressure on the schools to say, listen, these are 3 players that we have to get.
Right. But the thing is this, that Well, of course, as you know, Bruce, like everything else, you have division of labor in this thing of recruiting by schools. So the coach may not himself go out and get the people. You have spotters and scouts and whatever. But the coach has to know what is happening. It makes no sense bringing a boy into school for football and the coach does not approve and doesn't use him. So, I agree with you. The coach has to know. But the coach cannot bring anybody into any school. You follow me?
Yeah, the principal.
So I'm saying, until, not only the coach, the old boys in particular. And we have to understand that there are powerful old boys attached to these schools.
Yes.
These schools are essentially at the forefront of the recruiting, are our traditional high schools, especially the traditional boys' schools. These are the people running ahead, and they have tremendous pressure put on the coach and the principal and the school to take in the people.
Yes.
So I don't blame the coach. And so, as I say, all of those, the old boys, the whatever, cannot bring one boy into the school. So it's the school authorities, okay? The other thing I want to say is just to make people understand that I'm a sportsman. I've always been a sportsman, all right? When I was at school, I represented my school at Champs, which most people don't know or remember. I represented my school at cricket, both Colts and Sunlight. I represented my school at football, which most people will remember, Colts and Manning Cup. I played Manning, I played all Manning, I played all schools, I played all Jamaica when I was still in school, which was in those days a feat. You could count on one hand the people who did that. All right? I captained all of these teams. I was chosen as captain for all of these teams. I also I could have been the first Jamaican to play football in Brazil. A Brazilian team came here called Olario when our first Brazilian coach, Jorge Pena, was here. He brought them. And they wanted to take me back with them. One person they were impressed with, and it's me. And they wanted to take me. I didn't go because at that time I hadn't taken any exams or whatever. So it really didn't make sense for me. So I am the only person in Jamaica's football history to be chosen from Division 2, which is Division 1 will be like our Premier League now. Division 2 is a much lower league. I'm the only person in Jamaica's history to be chosen from Division 2 to captain a senior Jamaica team. So, when I went to university first, I was in Taylor Hall at UW. It's my first year, is the first time in the history of the university that Taylor Hall won the Hall competition, which was a big thing up there. I just say that so that people can get a perspective of where I'm coming from and who I am. I don't have any grosses against sports or whatever. But, I am very upset by what is happening in our schools with respect to sports. The emphasis on sports in our public, specialized educational institutions up to high school level should be as a teaching, learning tool, which is inclusive and allows all who have qualified in the normal way, legitimately, the opportunity of representing the institution and thus, developing through that medium. The mission of our specialized educational institutions is to deliver quality education and socialization to the students who qualify in the normal way to be at those institutions.
What do you say to those critics, Muggy, who will argue that look, what you inveighing against is what goes on in universities in America. What you're doing is you may have a Usain Bolt in some unrecognized school somewhere in Jamaica. Now Usain was able to excel even though he was at William Nib, which wouldn't be regarded as the sort of frontline school in terms of sports development. But what you would say to those who would argue that what you're seeking to do is to put obstacles in the way of a Usain Bolt, who, if he were transferred from that school where he's going now to a school that has better facilities, better coaches, better financial support for nutrition and the works, he could break Usain Bolt's record in another 5 or 6 years. How you would respond to that kind of criticism? Have we lost him? Oh Lord. An important argument I put to him. I'm anxious to get his response. We'll try to see if we can get him back. This is the argument of some people. That it's not everybody that go to school is going to be able to develop into success academically. You may have somebody whose academic potential is not that strong, but his athletic potential is very strong, and therefore what you need to do is to facilitate that, to provide the opportunities for him to develop that athletic ability. And he will probably end up more financially secure than if he had done well academically. That's an argument. I don't tell you that it is a conclusively persuasive argument, but that's an argument, and I'd love to get Moggy Graham's response to that. But then, we can't ignore the fact, and one of the points that he's making is that look at what you're doing to the schools. So you're preventing a school from developing because you're robbing the school of its asset. A good athlete is part of the assets of a school. And if that athlete succeeds, it will attract better teachers, better coaches, better sponsorships, so that school will develop. So instead of just one successful athlete, that school may in time become a virtual nursery for good athletes. Moggy, are you back?
Yes, I'm just.
I don't know if you. I lost you before you heard the question I was putting to you.
Yes, you lost me before that.
Yeah. What I was saying is, whose interest should we be primarily concerned about? Is it the student athlete or the school? Because some will argue that your approach is putting obstacles in the way of a student who may not be particularly strong academically, but he's very skilled athletically. And therefore, if he's given the opportunity to move to a school that can better develop those skills, that would be his pathway to success. Why are we standing in his way?
All right. The thing is this, whose interest is it in? It is in the interest of the students, of children, or poor children too, in particular, because the not so poor children can go to public school, can go to private schools or go overseas, whatever. The poor students cannot. They depend only on public schools for their education. Now, we have a system which is based on, because of the fact that we have so few schools, high schools, that deliver quality education. We have a system whereby we say, look here, we can't, the schools that deliver quality education can't take everybody. So we're basing it now off, we have an academic standard. So to get into what are considered the best schools, which are in that group are the traditional high schools. To get into these schools, you have to have an academic. We have an academic standard. So you take an exam. Depending on how you do, you get into the school. It is traumatic for some youngsters youngsters who come from the depths of the ghetto. I mean, through tremendous odds against them, they struggle and would get into such a school. But what happened? They struggle, they dodge bullet, they get low, they study on the street light and all these things, and can't get into the school. Why? Because we have brought in their neighbors who been kicking ball and running up and down the place all day when they're busting their whatever on the books. Is that fair to them? They don't have any football skill or any running skill.
Argument.
These people who have the running skill and the football can go to sports academies, which I say we should develop since we are so concerned about sports. You can go to sports academy or you have a chance at a club. These people who are have potential in computers, who may have potential in physics, who may have potential in language, and education is their way out, which is the way out for most poor people anyway. They can't get into school. We have a baller. So, you know, it is in the interest of our children. It is in the interest of Jamaica. Jamaica is in majority a black country. It is in the interest of black people that we focus, especially our specialized educational institutions, focus on education.
Let me raise two issues with you. One, as I understand it, you can correct me if I'm wrong. As I understand it, ISA now requires that a student transferring to another school, if he's to participate in a ISA-sponsored sporting activity, he has to have at least 45% pass mark in 4 subjects. That's one. Two, I gather he has to sit out a year before he can compete. Is that true?
Yeah. Well, look here. That 45% is what's recognized more in the breach than actually so. And even to get, it's a joke, but even to get that, you know, the people they're recruiting, many of them, I would say most of them, struggle. And, you know, when you talk to the teachers at these various schools that recruit heavily, because, you know, to win at football or champs these days, you not only have to recruit, and for a while, you have to recruit very heavily, or else you can't win. You have to assemble an all-star, all-schools team on your campus before you have a chance. You know, so
the 1 year period that before they are eligible. Suppose that were moved to 2 years. Would that make a difference?
It may, but look, you know what I'm saying, Bruce. In principle, it is wrong. Our schools, and you know, I must congratulate Campion College and Immaculate Conception High, among others.
Can we pick that up? We have to take a break, Moggy. Can we pick that up after the break?
Right.
Welcome back. It's Jamaica Live. We're on Bridge 99. We're linking with New York, and we're on the same time now. Beauregard, are you there?
Good afternoon, Mr. Golden.
Hail up, my friend. How you doing?
Everything is all right. I'm here enjoying the weather, enjoying the day. It's Labor Day, Monday in New York.
Oh, yeah, today's Labor Day up there.
Yeah, man.
We don't celebrate Labor Day till May.
Wow.
Today we're talking about this practice of, you know, some schools with strong backative, raiding the best athletes, best footballers and track and field athletes, students from other schools, weaker schools. So you end up with those schools remaining weak because they're never able to grab some headlines because of they're losing their best athletes to the stronger schools. Right. That is something that is virtually an industry among colleges in America, isn't it?
Yes, it is. That's a very big thing here in the United States, where they go around and recruit to get the best
Yeah.
students to come to the best schools.
And who offer the biggest money gets the best players.
Yes, indeed, that's how it is.
Well, there's a view, and we have on the program, we're going to be rejoining him shortly, Dr. Lascelles Graham, who has been crusading against this for a long time. He argues that what we have done is that instead of the schools focusing on academics and using sports as a teaching tool in terms of producing rounded students and using sports to help them in terms of, their behavior and their discipline and so on, that what we're doing is that we have transformed the schools into sports factories at the expense of the purpose of which the schools were originally intended. So later on in the program, I'm going to shout you back and get your perspective on it. But go on listening to the discussion.
No problem, sir.
Yeah. Moggy, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
I'm springing this as a surprise on you, but we're going to be joined by, you and I went to school together, and both of us have another schoolmate, Donovan Bennett, Dr. Donovan Bennett.
Yes.
Who I'm going to invite on the program now because he has a somewhat different view, and it would be good to sort of put both views on the table and let us talk around them. Dr. Bennett, are you there?
I'm here.
Yeah.
Mr. Boulding. Good afternoon.
Moggy is on the program as well.
Hi. Afternoon, Nicky. Afternoon, Moggy. Hi.
Danny, what is your view? What is your take on this business? You know the campaign that Moggy has been waging relentlessly and the damage that he feels that it is doing to our schools, to the psychology of our students. And some of the points that he has made, are strong points. I mean, I would not like to be a student who, I bust in my shot, I study hard in the evenings. But I find that some other guy who is not bothering to study as much as I do, but he's a wizard with the ball, that he's being given preference over me in whatever opportunity arises at the school. But you have a different take because you when I spoke with you on the matter a couple of days ago, your view was that the interest of the student and his potential, his athletic potential, is perhaps as important in developing that student as is his academic. What's your view?
Well, when we went to school, I mean, I can understand where Moggy's coming from, and Moggy and I have had multiple long, sometimes heated, sometimes very friendly discussions on this topic. So it's not the first time that we will be talking about this particular issue. Look, when we were going to school, sports was not it was not an industry. Sport then was recreation. This is what it was. This is how it was looked upon. So I don't think we can go back to that era and draw conclusions from there because sports is now a huge industry. The better athletes of whom, in fact, earn more than what you and I earn, right, with our various degrees. So,
but should it be an industry in our schools?
Well, so where do you begin? If you don't develop this talent, how does that person, or how is that person able to enter into that profession? It has to be honed from an early age. And I discussed it with Moggy even a few days ago. And in the absence of having sport in schools that develop this talent, the secondary schools have had to take up the slack. If you check the South African model, what they have 3 or 4 or 5 regional schools where all the sporting talents go to. They have a tremendous amount of infrastructure and expertise available to these students, and they are developed as sportsmen, not at the same time ignoring their academics, because that is also offered to them. But the focus in those schools is the development of sporting talent. Now, we don't have the system in place. So you tell me now, a guy is 12 years old, he has tremendous cricket or footballing potential or track and field potential. The government, our governments that we have had in the past 17 years have not realized or have not been willing to take up the responsibility of developing this talent. So it is now left to a few of us who are involved in school sports to recognize and to bring these students in and try and help them. Let me tell you offhand that I am not in the business necessarily of poaching players from other schools. The system that we operated for the most part, because you had people from other schools who saw what we were doing and wanted to come and be a part of it. But for the most part, we were focused on taking in 12-year-old grade 7 students with huge sporting potential and developing the talent, not at the same time ignoring their academic potential. Because I can tell you that about 5 years ago, the UWI got to the finals of the Jamaica Cricket Association limited overs competition. And on that UWI team, there were six students from St. Elizabeth Technical, and all of them came out of that program. Mogi, I hear you laughing, but it's a serious point. There were six people who were UWI students who came out of that program at St. Elizabeth Technical. So, I'll hand over to Mogi, to say his piece. Right?
Okay. May I, Bruce?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to say that, first of all, I agree fully with Dr. Bennett with respect to what South Africa is doing and setting up sports academies.
Should we be looking to do that here?
Long time. We are lazy, Bruce. We have been very lazy. Look here. It's from 1948, 1952, Jamaica stunning the world, with athletes. This is 2022, and we have been lazy. We want this and we want that, and what do? We corrupt our education system to do it instead of doing it in the proper way. Yes, I agree that that is where we need to move. We should have moved long ago, but the answer is not our schools to be the developmental arms for these various associations. You cannot sacrifice education for sports. It would go in nowhere doing that. And I as I say, I wanted to say this, that I outlined a scenario there that, with respect to school and people working on the students who arrive at their school in a legitimate way, which would give us a higher probability of developing rounded, balanced, pro-social, productive citizens. And I wanted to take the opportunity to congratulate Campion College and Immaculate Conception High, among others, for acting like that. They are not in the mad race to the bottom that so many of our other schools are. Because, look here, we have, I am happy to say, and I hope they do well, we have a number of sports academies now, but particularly Mount Pleasant has a sports academy there. Yes, that's the way to go. In that sports academy, you are taken into the school based on your sports ability. It's a sports academy. Fine, that is their mission, right? That's good. Nothing wrong with that. That's not the mission of our public schools. And until education, socialization becomes paramount in Jamaica, boy, woe is we.
How many Mount Pleasants do we have now?
There are some others, but I think Mount Pleasant is the most prominent of them,
And
I don't know all of them.
And they provide a focus on academics as well?
Well, they do the best they can. You must remember, Bruce, that to play sports or to run fast or whatever it is. You don't have to be any great brain, you know. You have people who can do it and
natural talent.
Yes, you know, whatever it is. So we must facilitate them. I feel if you see a boy on the street tomorrow and this boy is 17 or 15 or whatever, hasn't been to any great school, has not a great school, there must be a path for him to, if he is that good, to play for Jamaica. It doesn't have to be through the school system. Cannot be. And, you know, I have to tell you this. Years ago, you see, when I used to be using my car to go all over from one end of Jamaica to the other to talk with principals and principals association and what have you, I interviewed, and I can't call his name now because, you know, they can't touch him now. They can't punish him now because he has done very well. I see where he founded a company one-on-one and just had it put on the stock exchange. His name is Mr. Ricardo Allen. And he went to JC. And he, very bright, very bright. He got he was a Rhodes Scholar and a Fulbright Scholar. He's an actuary. Very bright. And I spoke with him years ago. And he was telling me that he qualified to go to JC in the normal way. Can't remember if he said he played Pepsi, but could have played Pepsi. But he definitely played Coles. And he was quite good at football, you know. One of the better players. And getting ready now to play Manning Cup. He had to take the bench. Why? They got in recruit people from Standpipe and all over the place, who he wasn't as good as those people, right? He had to, but he is a student who did the right thing, qualified in the right way, that we say you must qualify, couldn't get a place. And guess what? He was very bright, and his philosophy is, you know, you don't just linger here, you move on, you press on. And he had different openings because of how bright he was. So he was disappointed, he was upset, you know, but he never got bitter because he had other outlets. Now, there are many children who, like him, get very bitter, right? You have many others who are taken in from first form, never had to do any GSAT or PEP or whatever it is, come into the thing for football or champs or whatever it is, and say football, they play Pepsi, they don't pass any exam, you know. They come in though, they play Pepsi, they play Coles, and by the time they get the money, and of course the school is recruiting heavily anyway, they can't make the Manning team. A lot of those, I can tell you, become very bitter because now they are in the school. They didn't have much interest in academics anyway. So now they are lost. And so a lot of them, I can tell you, revert to criminal activities. All right? And yet we are talking about, crime and we're going to get serious on crime and what have you. Okay?
Let me ask both of you. Was Derek Tompkins the person who introduced this?
Derek Tompkins, the man from England, came down here and introduced the heavy recruiting of footballers, right? It's wholesale recruiting of footballers in schoolboy football. Derek Tompkins introduced it. And the fact is that he left from where he was and went to there, and boy, that's where it really took hold. Our essentially, you know, the Veer team was a Santos team, you know, club. Whenever they play football, them just go down to Veer and represent Veer. But the fact is that, here it is. And of course, our leadership took it hook, line, and sinker. Oh, yes, we can win and everything gone. Look here, though. This man from England, this Englishman, came to Jamaica. Banana Republic, I call it. And we grab up this thing. It is so good, but he couldn't introduce it in England, In England, that don't work. Yet it is so good.
Well,
you see? I see.
Well, it works in professional football.
Well, it's professional football. Of course, that's where it must work.
Yeah.
Recruiting on itself, not bad. It's professional, yes, and that's what we have done. We have professionalized sports in our school, which takes it out of the role it should have.
Danny, would the establishment of sufficient sports academies
Yes.
solve the problem?
That is,
Yeah,
it would be a good way.
That would solve the problem, but I'm not sure. I agree with Muggy in a lot of what he has said, and I disagree with a lot of what he has said, because I think he mentioned that these places, because of the sports people being taken into the school, that denies other people with better academic achievements from entering the school, and that is not true, because the government, the Ministry of Education, is an entity that gives the school an allocation for each year, and that allocation has to be taken in by that school in its entirety, right? The people who come in at, say, grade 7, who are recognized for the sports and ability, are in addition to what the government sends to the school. So I don't think that you have a situation where these people who have achieved academically are kept out of school because
that subvention from the ministry can't even finance a proper lab.
No. I'm not talking a monetary subvention. I am talking about the cohort of students that are sent to each school.
Oh, I see.
Based on the PET examination every year.
Yeah.
And the school has to take every one of those students. You cannot exclude one of those students, right? So what happens in most of the schools is that a few sporting people are taken in, and they are facilitated by putting in extra benches or arranging special classes for them, that sort of thing.
But the point Muggy is making is that when I am principal of the school and I take in my grade 7 cohort,
yes,
and I have a boy there who can run like crazy, because him grew up accustomed to running from his mother when she was trying to beat him.
Right.
And I am looking now to say, rotted boy, this school going to win the first race at championship in 2 years' time. And 2 years' time, all of a sudden, parents tell me I'm not coming back.
Yeah, but you see, and that is true. But then again, you must also remember that not all schools are strong in whatever sporting discipline you might want to choose. I mean, for example, you might have you might have good facilities for cricket in the school. You may have very good coaches, right? And that is going to attract the best cricketers to come to that school. I can think of one particular cricketer now who has tremendous ability, and because he went to a school in Clarendon instead of going to a school that had the proper cricketing facilities, he's struggling right now. He has played for the West Indies, but he can't maintain his game because he has so many falls. And once these falls have been developed during the formative years, it's very difficult, to coach him out of it. So the point I'm trying to make is that if I had a son, and I hope you had a son, who was at age 12 showed tremendous potential in whatever sporting discipline you want to choose, you would want to send him to a school where the proper facilities and coaching is available. to develop his talent. You would not want to send him to a school where there's no coach, there's no field for him to play, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this is what I think this is what creates a problem right now. Is for those schools who don't have the facilities in place to make an effort to get themselves up to speed so that they can retain their athletes.
Some time ago, the former
may I just reply to?
Yes.
Look, you have schools can take a given number of children, whether it is, as you say, the cohort from whatever. So the schools have limited space. So if you take one child into a school, you are leave, and many people want to come to the school. If you take one child into a school, you are of necessity keeping out one other child. Isn't that so?
No, I don't agree with that. No.
So the school, you have limited space in a school. A school can only accommodate 250. Let us say, at first form or whatever. So you can't take more than the 250.
Well,
right?
maybe you can squeeze it to 254.
Right. That's exactly.
Right?
All right. Let us say you have 254.
Yeah.
You can, the school limited space, 254. Okay? All right. Now, if you take the 254th.
Because those four are some sharp athletes, or footballers.
Yes. But if you take, let us say, the 254th into the school, don't you have to keep out others? Because will heap others want to come to school?
No, but the others now the number would have been 250. But let me raise with you though.
What I'm saying? No, I want you understand what I'm saying.
No, I understand the point. I understand the point you're making.
Because don't tell me that you're not keeping out anybody.
Tell me now.
Because that doesn't follow.
The former Minister of Education, Ronnie Thwaites, who is a schoolmate of both of us, of all three of us, he had promised legislation to regulate this practice. I know he had brought a ministry paper to Parliament, but no legislation. Do you know? Well, Moggy, you perhaps would have been following it up with him because I only discovered that over the weekend. Whatever happened to that, or what was the thinking behind that kind of that approach?
Well, the legislation was to try and ensure that this thing would have been cut down. My belief, is, and my strong push is that we ban recruiting for sports purposes by our schools. That's what the legislation should do. I don't think that one was doing it. But that is what should happen. We should not have it. Because the fact is, and that's why I say I have so much praise for Campion and Immaculate, who through the years have not gone the route that the others have gone. Because what should happen is that, let's say a school gets people, let's say Campion, get people who... with two left feet. All they have is people with two left feet to represent them in football. My feeling is that those people represent them. That's who they are. And so they must represent them on the football field or on the track field or wherever else. Okay? And we do the best for them that we can. Because the mission of our schools is not to produce world-class athletes, right? It is.
But you're both agreeing that we need facilities to produce world-class athletes.
Yes.
But that must not compromise, Moggy, you're saying, that must not compromise the principal focus of our public schools.
Yes.
Which is to provide the maximum number of children with the kind of success on which they can build a life. That's what you're saying, no?
Definitely. And remember, too, that the niche of the specialized public educational institution is academic, technical and vocational,
along
with socialization. Because the fact is this, that, I see where they are saying now, we must put in place
quick for me, Moggy, because we're up on the 1 o'clock.
Education
I'd like to ask a question, Bruce. I'd like to ask a question.
Yeah, very quickly, Danny.
Yeah. In the absence of these regional sporting schools that we both agree on, what happens to those kids, right?
No, the school will discover the kids, Remember, that in St. George's, in my time, George's produced more football talent than all the other schools together,
I'm talking about a kid who has
the schools will discover them.
That discussion
has an average of 60 and cannot get into St. George's College.
That discussion
where he can get in.
Hey. That discussion will have to continue off the air because we're up on 1 o'clock and we have to go. Thank you both very much, Dr. Donovan Bennett and Dr. Lascelles Graham, two of my old schoolmates from St. George's, but bringing a particularly sharp insight into this important discussion. This 1 o'clock, we go for the break. Welcome back. It's Jamaica Live. We're on Bridge 99. We're talking today about this business of the poaching of student athletes, the kind of run jostling that goes on among our high schools, where schools that have better resources, better external support, from old students and so on, are constantly prowling around and grabbing good student athletes from other schools, some of them weaker schools, some of them schools that can't compete with them in terms of the kind of facilities and the kind of material support that is given to the students. And we're looking at it in terms of what are the advantages of this particular approach, what are the negative consequences. We had on Dr. Lascelles Graham, who believed that this is something that we should ban completely. Dr. Donovan Bennett, who was also on, he takes a different view. He feels that we must not deliberately sort of throw obstacles in the way of the development of the athletic ability of some students, because for some students that may be their pathway to success, not academics. They may not be able to manage that, but they can build a career and achieve financial security through the development of their sporting talent. So that's the issue that we're talking about today. And we're very pleased now to be joined to continue the discussion Mr. Corey Bennett, who is the Vice President of Hydel High, and he's the head coach of Hydel High. Corey, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
How have you been?
I've been okay. A little bit tired over this very long summer with a lot of activities taking place.
Yeah, well, you're getting. I'm sure you'll get back in stride. Tell me, Hydel has done in Hydel's short span of existence, Hydel has done exceptionally well in terms of sporting competition. Mm-hmm. Today we're talking about the business of the poaching, and I think I saw an interview that you had done in one of the papers some time ago. We're talking about this business of poaching of student athletes. Mm. When I look at Hydel's success, is Hydel a poacher or a poachee?
We're oftentimes on the negative end of it.
In other words, you lose some of your good athletic students.
Yes, we have, and we have suffered for that for a while. We've had athletes and footballers. I remember our Manning Cup captain was recruited to a traditional school, and he sat on the bench of the other school. We've lost a lot. Our boys program, for one, has been hit from the big schools. And I want to speak to you as a head coach.
So when you want a team of 11, you have to train 22.
Yeah, exactly. So, the irony of it is that I'm now also the head coach at Calabar, but I want to speak to the head coach of Heidel. And we have been through it. We've lost some athletes just because we were not able to give them what they thought they deserved. And this was outside of coaching. This is more material stuff. This is more. It's crazy to even mention on the wave of the public listeners, but we couldn't give them all that they thought they should have deserved.
Now, how is it that despite being a victim, how is it that Heidel does so well? What happened, for example, at Edwin Allen? They have done so well in track, and certainly the girls' side.
Right.
So they're not poaching from Edwin Allen too, or they're poaching?
I don't. That's one of the few programs where I don't hear a lot of poaching happening. I think where they're located, the majority, if not all of the girls, I suspect, live on dorms. So it's a little more guarded. All girls tend to be traveling back and forth for the most part. But we were young, we were new, and persons didn't see us as the traditional school to take them to the next level. Even though our track and field record was speaking for itself and our academics were speaking for itself, persons just always felt that, probably felt in a different school uniform, I would want to say you'd probably be a better athlete. Most persons who left us have not done better athletically. And therefore, I think some persons have made definitely a bad choice. But there are some good choices, though, Sir Golden, from other schools that I've seen where transferring, has definitely helped. Let's speak of even recently Brenna Liston, who came to us. And again, let me just make it clear, we did not go at Brenna Liston. Brenna Liston sought to come to us based on our program at our school, and she did remarkably well. So, it works in both scenarios. There are advantages and disadvantages, but we've been coached a lot.
Let me ask you this though, Corey. Because there are a whole heap of things that are thrown into the mix, no? You have old students of some of the traditional schools with deep pockets, and they provide, support. I mean, I've heard stories where they all rent house for the whole family to move from some faraway place.
I've heard that.
And things like that. But you look at a Usain Bolt, William Knibb High School. He didn't need to transfer to a Calabar or a JC to become the world success that he has become. The question I want to put to you is it what makes a difference? Is it the coaching, or is it the individual's just natural talent? In other words, if William Knibb has a good athletics coach, then we wouldn't, nobody don't need to leave there to go to no Calabar because the coaching is good.
Right. I think it's a mixture of both. I think, and then also you have Asafa Powell at Charlemont. You have Jermaine Gonzalez, who's at Tatius Golden. So you have some really, really good athletes, especially on the boys' side, that continue to do well at non-traditional schools. If you look at the female side, the Merlin Otis, the Veronica Campbells went to traditional powers. I tried to do a little informal study about that, but the Nesta Carter was at a Manchester High, who's not a school vying for championship honors. So you find that on the boys' side, it seems as though a Kemar Bailey Cole was at Old Harbour High, and I could go on with a few more. But you can actually, I think coaching, and I think some of these schools do have good coaches. They don't fight for championship honors, and I think attention can be given to the athletes. And it has to be, come from trust, an angle of trust, where the athlete believes that I can trust to stay with this coach and they can take me to another level. Usain Bolt is a different case, though. I think Usain Bolt is, out of this world and probably could have survived in any program. But I think the coach at William Knibb would have done a great job with him, and not just him, because there's a Michael Green who was there also, who did well, and also did well in the college system and for Jamaica. So.
The former Minister of Education, Ronnie Thwaites, he had taken a pretty strident position on it. He had, I have before me a ministry paper that he took to Parliament, I think, in 2015, and one of the things that he had promised to do, which was never done, he was going to pass a law to ban the transfer of students for sporting purposes. Not absolute ban, I mean, but if the purpose of the transfer is for sporting purposes, this would have become illegal. Do we need to go there?
I don't think so.
Why not?
Because Sir Golan, we have cases where look at Oblique Seville, who is probably Jamaica's number one talent now on the male side. I know he transferred from Homewood to Calabar, and then he just took off. Persons will argue that the young man from Merlin Otti is not very far and stayed at Merlin Otti. So again, I don't want to be hard and fast. I look at the rule as it exists now, and there is control measures in place where you can't recruit more than a certain amount. Like I think in track and field, you can't have more than 2 transfer athletes per class. In football, you can't have more than 3 transfers.
That's a rule laid down by ISA?
Yeah, that's that rule now. I think this for the last 2 years. So you're
How
really
long do you have to be attending the school before you can represent it in ISA-sponsored sports?
As long as, if you're not in sixth form, because sixth formers can compete right away as long as they fall in the quota system.
Yeah.
Even if you go to sixth form and there are 3 for you, only 2 you can run, especially in a class. But other than that, you have to wait out to fit out 1 year before you're eligible. And again, you still have to fall into the quota system per sport.
So if after the 1 year, you're then how long that quota system applies? I mean, for example,
it continues as long as you're at the school.
If I transfer from one school to the next, and 4 years after I started going to that second school, I'm competing. I'm still in the quota.
You're still in the quota.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you're still in the quota. It's really tight now. They don't have the freedom.
Is it enforced though? Because Muggy Graham tends to feel that may be the rule, but who is paying attention to it?
Well, I guess we have to have some real good whistleblowers. The ISA system, once you're registered in the ISA system on the database, it should pick it up. Other than that, then I believe that we're going to have some persons who speak out. I don't know how much it is enforced.
One of the things that both Muggy Graham and Danny Bennett agreed on, although they disagree on the broader issue. But one thing they agreed on was that the ultimate solution to the problem is to have sufficient sports academies where the prime focus is on developing sporting talent. So, it's not the traditional schools, their prime focus is academics and so on, and vocational. But the sporting academies would be primarily concerned with sports. They would try and bring you up as much as they can academically, but essentially they would be turning out sports people. And they both seem to feel that once that is done, then the schools wouldn't have to be jumping around. Because once you identify a potentially strong, good athlete, then he goes to the sports academy right away.
Jamaica is fueled by high school sports. And the academies probably would not be able to compete in high school sports. And no matter how big a Premier League football match is, I don't think it can match Manning Cup final or the Costa Cup final. And we are fueled a lot by boys and girls champs. And I think that the majority of Jamaicans, including myself, would want to see these persons compete at the high school stage, at least, amongst their peers. That's a good concept, going for the national program and stuff. But in terms of competitiveness, I think the majority of Jamaicans would want to maintain that high standard at the high school level. And I don't think there's any way around it. Going into academy, you really can't compete with ISA schools.
Yes, I understand.
So it's taken away a high quality of the high schoolers to put into an academy, and therefore the average Jamaican who want to chart the way of their fellow Jamaicans will be robbed of that opportunity. So I'm not sure how that will work at a Jamaican level. At a national level, representation fine, but I'm not sure how well.
But, I feel I have problem though in getting over this hurdle. You mentioned, for example, Tatius Golding, which is a school. It's actually named after my father.
Right.
But is it fair to a Tatius Golding if good athletes from that school are snatched and end up at the JCs and the Calabars and the KCs? What does it do in terms of stymieing the potential for Tatius Golding to become competitive with the KCs and the Calabars and the JCs?
It's never fair, and it will never be fair to a Tatius Golding. I've noticed that some schools have gone the overseas route, and they're gone into Africa and they're gone into the rest of the Caribbean.
Or should we allow that?
Because
all the justification that you put forward, that not meaning you, but all the justification that is put forward is about providing opportunity for our youngsters who may not be able to make it as chemists and scientists and doctors, but can make it as athletes. And what we're going to Africa for?
I have a general problem with it because I think our local athletes are being sidelined many times. I think persons who pass some of these traditional schools are pushed aside because there's a heavy recruitment of talent overseas with no
we shouldn't allow
apparent with no apparent restrictions to
Does ISA allow that?
Yeah, ISA allows it. I saw recently where one school brought in, I think, 5 or 6 members of one football national program.
Is that you serious?
So it will sideline our talent. Eventually, we are going to suffer from it because we are replacing our local competitors with foreign competitors, and therefore it is kind of pushing us to the back burner for the most part.
But that seriously undercuts the argument of those who defend the transfer of students for sport purposes. Undercuts it severely.
I think there's a lot of hypocrisy involved with it because I can't see why somebody from Ghana can compete right away, but somebody from Monroe can't switch and compete right away. So there's a lot of hypocrisy involved in it. I think that should be revisited because I don't believe it is fair to us in Jamaica who have grown up on Jamaican schooling and Jamaican food and grown up on champs.
Well, I support you 100%.
Yeah, for somebody to just come in and get that high jump spot or that 100-meter spot or that 800 spot after I've been working 3-4 years to get that spot.
Tell me, have we done any tracer studies, Corey, to see all these athletes that were snatched? And we sort of thrust them into the spotlight because this man looked like him could be the next record breaker. What happens to them when they can no longer attend school or compete? Have we done a tracer study to show how many of them went on successful paths and how many of them ended up on the dump heap?
I don't think our official study was done. I think it's more just from the visual. Most persons, and it seems to be easier to track the track and field side of the sport than the football side of the sport. A lot of our boys end up in the Premier League, local Premier League, and a few may end up overseas in colleges. But I don't think the percentage is very high on the football side in terms of transitioning.
What about on the track and field side?
I think it's easier to track. Most persons either will go locally into one of the local clubs, one of the local universities, or they'll take up a scholarship overseas. I think the percentage of those who don't continue, especially the real good ones, are very small in the sport. What they do after college is another question. But I think at least it gets them into college, whether locally or overseas, or straight into the professional ranks, for the most part.
How easy it is for a good school athlete to pick up a scholarship overseas?
The truth is that universities overseas tend to hound us a lot for athletes. I think we have a great product. I've seen easily at a boys and girls champs or a character games, upwards of 20 plus scouts from different universities.
Are you serious?
In attendance, just to get our athletes.
And they're offering scholarships.
Yeah, full scholarships. And it's either, I got an email up to yesterday asking, is there anybody that you have that's still available? So it really is a good look for track and field for opportunities of university education.
From the top of your head, an average year, how many of our athletes secure scholarships overseas?
On the top of my head, I'd want to say in the region of about 100 to 120.
As many as that, Corey?
I believe so, yeah.
What you saying to me?
Yeah. On average, my school alone can put out about probably 5 to 8 girls each year.
Each year?
Yeah.
And this would be girls who have completed high school?
Completed high school.
Uh-huh.
In some cases, one who have not completed high school but has made the academic requirements to go. So, yeah.
Now, those recruiters from the colleges overseas, do they insist on them meeting the academic requirements, or they're prepared to waive that?
No, well, since COVID has come in, they have waived like the SATs. That was normally a requirement to get into universities overseas.
Uh-huh.
But then there's always the step below. There's the junior college ranks where, for want of a better term, it's almost like high school.
Yes.
So you can go in there below the requirements, and then you can transition after 2 years into a regular 4-year college.
Yes.
So there's always somewhere for somebody, as long as they think that you're good enough.
And these scholarships are lucrative in the sense that they cover your tuition, your board. Those athletes are able to live reasonably well.
Yeah, you're looking at. If I might say, my son recently got a scholarship to go to a school in South Carolina, and that was valued at $70,000 per year.
Is that right?
And I don't think my son is a great athlete, but he was very good academically, and I think he was just about an above average athlete who was able to attract that kind of scholarship at that school, because that school was mostly academic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I believe that scholarships are trust me. One of my athletes just went up and she was handed a laptop as she arrived.
Yes.
So, and they do get good stipends, especially the certain schools that you go, that will afford you to send back, money home to family. And
what about the overseas recruitment of our footballers?
I don't think it is as great as the track and field, and I don't think we are necessarily very sought after, because I think that the standard of Jamaica's football compared to the region may not be somewhere where they're seeking.
Yeah.
I think you'd have to be a real standout with the academics to really get a football scholarship.
Yes. Corey Bennett, thanks a lot for joining us.
No problem.
Your input has been very useful to the discussion.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me, Sir Golden.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great.
Beauregard, I want you in on this discussion now. I want your wisdom. Are you there, Beauregard? Not there? Not there. Okay. I want to pick his brain, because he's a man of wisdom. He understands these issues in a sort of intuitive way. A little later on, we talk to him. We've been talking about the practice of the poaching of students for sporting purposes, and we had in the discussion Dr. Lascelles Graham, Dr. Donovan Bennett. We just concluded a discussion with Corey Bennett, who is the head coach of Hydel. Did he say that he's now also the coach at Calabar? Calabar Hydel. But he has done so well with the Hydel athletes. Particularly the girls, in terms of their performance at Girls Champs, to get their input. And some of it I wasn't aware of before. For example, I didn't know that a quota ISA imposed a quota. You can't have more than a certain number of transferees in your team, and the transferee status stays with you year after year. So if you move from school A to school B, so long as you're in School B, you're treated as a transferee. And they put a limit as to how many transferees you can have in each class. That, he says, doesn't apply to sixth form because sixth form is not universal. So some students will transfer from one school to the next for the purpose of attending sixth form, and therefore that restriction doesn't apply. But the quota system is something that I noticed was introduced many, many years ago in New Zealand. I don't know if that is where we borrowed it from. But in New Zealand, they impose a quota. You can't have more than a certain percentage of your team being made up of students who transferred from other schools. If, based on what Corey Bennett is telling us, what ISSA seems to have done is not put a percentage. A percentage would not provide you with much security. I mean, if it's a 5%, not more than 5%, and I want to use 10 students that I have recruited from other schools, then all I have to do is to enter a large number of students in order to get that 10 to the 5% limit. But what he's saying is that they put a specific number, not more than so many persons in each class, which is good to know. I didn't know that before. I was also pleased to hear from him what he was telling me about the number of scholarships that our athletes leaving high school are getting. He said between 100 and 120 a year. That is significant. And we're talking about hefty scholarships too. He mentioned his own son, who got a scholarship valued at $70,000 US. I know that they were getting scholarships, but I didn't know it was in those numbers. And he says that whenever we have boys and girls shams, around 20 recruiters from colleges in America come each year for boys and girls shams, to spot the students, the athletes. I imagine those that are in class 1 and therefore would be just becoming eligible for college. And to round them up quickly and offer them good scholarships, that's good to know. So in fact, what we're doing is that we are producing athletes for export. I mean, that's essentially what we're doing, which is good to know. Did you say Beauregard is with me now? Not with me. What happened to that fellow? That fellow has abandoned us. All right, I'll deal with him. Do we take a break now or do we continue? Take a break. Let's take a break now. We're talking about sports poaching today. Poaching of students in high school. And we had Dr. Lascelles Graham on earlier. And I gather he's back on the line now because there's an issue. No, he isn't? Oh, I thought. Okay. We're going to be joined now by the principal of Jamaica College, Mr. Wayne Robinson. Mr. Robinson, are you there?
I'm here, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for making time, because I know today must be a very busy day for you.
It is a busy day trying to get school ready. We start in the middle of the week, but we're on. I know.
Okay. We're talking about the business of transferring students primarily for sporting purposes. Yeah. Which has been, Muggy Graham has been on a crusade for over 10 years about this. Former Minister of Education, Deacon Ronald Thwaites, took a very strong position about it. Every time this discussion comes up, fingers are pointed at Jamaica College.
Sure.
My old school is thieving students from other schools. Why are we doing that?
I don't know about stealing students from other schools, but listen again, sports, and I want to just start fundamentally. Sports is no longer the adjunct faculty. Sports is a pathway. And so the impression that is being given, and I'm not sure where the data has come from, that students, that sports is causing dysfunctional education, and that it is the root of or part of the problem that we have in education. It's unfair if we look at what sports has done. Sports is now a part of the faculty of UWI. UTEC has started it. a lot of our youngsters who transfer into Jamaica College go on to careers in sports, and there are multiple careers in sports now. If they stay in Jamaica, they can go to GC Foster, they go to Teachers College, as I mentioned. Both UTEC and UW are having sports programs and sports management programs now.
Wayne, have you done a tracer study to see what happened to them after they leave JC?
Absolutely, because that is what we have been and ISA is doing that too, because if you notice, ISA is a body of principles. It's not arbitrary people. It's a body of principles who constantly review to ensure that the very same thing that is being complained about is managed by rules. And so we have traced our students. We've traced the students who have got scholarships. We've traced those who have also gone on to a university here or college here or GC Foster. And so I can tell you it is not just, as I said earlier, not just an adjunct faculty anymore. It is a pathway for careers. And I don't mean that you're going to reach to the top like a Usain Bolt. No, that's only a very select few. But there are multiple pathways now in sports for careers.
But what do you say? What do you say when to Guys Hill High School that may produce a promising young athlete that shows a lot of talent, or a footballer, and they are now looking to the day when Guys Hill name going to be on the headline in the sports column of the Gleaner, and before you know what happened, Wayne Robinson is at the gate waiting to collect him.
Right,
is that fair to Guys Hill?
And I'm saying that again, there are numbers that are managed. I think ISA manages at 2 now. So if let us say John Brown came from Guys Hill to Jamaica College, the reason why he would come is because he may think there's an improved opportunity for the support he needs to get a career that he thinks he has the potential for. And so he would come because the quality of the facilities, the quality of the support, the quality of the team that surrounds him, the medical team, the coaching staff, all of that may be improved here because Guys Hill may not have that traditionally available to them. So that is the reason why somebody would accept any offer, and I'm using it in the way of being approached by the school who is taking you, right? And I'm saying to you, so I'm not saying it doesn't happen. Of course we do. I'm saying ISA, though, manages that by the rules. It can't be that all the people are not. The students need to get the opportunity, just like our students who go abroad and go for sporting careers there. They need to get that opportunity too. And just like abroad will manage it, they will manage and say, listen, they can't take more than a certain amount of foreigners, they can't take more than a certain amount of people on your team. That's how it's to be managed. But it can't be banned. Being banned means you're living in a different age. You're not looking at what is the benefits of it.
But haven't we really gone off the edge, though, when I hear now that we're going to all Africa to go recruit students?
And again, I said to you, all transfers and recruiting must be managed by ISA and, of course, the Ministry of Education.
But ISA allows it, I'm told.
ISA adjusts their rules. The quota rule that came in a couple of years ago is as a result of uncontrolled transfers. And so ISA don't believe that.
No, the point I'm making is, if the argument that you are putting forward, which has merit, don't get me wrong, but if that argument rests primarily on the need to provide opportunities for our Jamaican students who may not be gifted academically, but has a sporting talent that could provide them with a pathway to success. We mustn't stand in their way. If that is the basis of the argument, that is seriously undermined when we can't get enough students to put in our school from poaching from other schools in Jamaica. So we're going abroad now? What will business providing opportunity for the development of students in other countries? And we can't even provide enough opportunities for our own.
All right, so let's start there. ISA has to manage, and I'm sure they will, any kind of transfers from out of the country. But remember, Sir Bruce, as we speak, our students have to go abroad too and develop abroad too. So if we're going to close our gates, I am saying it must be managed. But if you're going to close your gates, you're telling us that you're telling anybody abroad too that they mustn't allow Jamaican students to come there and develop.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that
so you're saying it must be one-sided?
No, when they go to Wisconsin and when they go to Oregon, They're dealing with countries that have resources that they can afford to be recruiting athletes from all over the world. We can't. That's what I'm saying.
And I'm saying to you, yes, but you have to make sure that there's equity. The truth is, again, for all transfers from school to school or from country to school here, a set of rules and guidelines must be put in place and continuously adjusted by ISA. And I trust ISA to do that because they've been continuously doing that.
If I was still in office, and I wouldn't even depend on ISA to do that, I'd just give instructions that no approval must be given by immigration for them to spend more than 3 weeks in the island. We can't be doing that.
And again, I have no problem with looking into that, sir. But again, I said to you, remember, if you do that, you are saying that our students can't get opportunities abroad either.
No.
So you have to be careful how you do that.
No. We send farm workers to Canada, but we're not accepting the farm workers from Canada to come here.
But we do accept as a Chinese coming in. I'm saying,
put it this way. You drive up and down round town. You have some streets that are one-way streets,
Yes.
Not everyone that you can drive 2 ways.
And I'm not disagreeing with you. Remember what I said, I am confident that our principals who manage sports in Jamaica are very clear on where we are trying to go in education in Jamaica.
Some of the stories
also are aware of sport being an important part of that.
Some of the stories that I hear, though, Wayne, some of the anecdotes, and I don't know if they're true, but people who know more about it than me insist that it is true. The kind of enticement that is being offered. I hear that, for example, one student, and thank God in this case, JC was not accused as being the culprit.
Yeah.
But one student athlete apparently showed so much promise that by the time they finished negotiating with his parents, a house was rented in Kingston for the whole family. Jobs were found for the father, and some weekly allowance was provided for the mother. There's something about that just don't sit right with me.
Well, I can't speak to that. And I understand why something wouldn't sit right. I can't speak to that. What we need to make sure that we do is that there are guidelines at the level of ISA, where the rule books are.
But the problem is that ISA don't know. ISA may have heard about these things the same way that I hear, but they don't know proof.
They wouldn't have the proof.
Because this is not being done by the school establishment. It's being done off the school. It's the old students and the people who themselves let's not go talk to the mother and father and find a house in town because we need to get that boy on the team. That's how we're going to win champs this year.
And again, I can't speak to that, Sir Bruce, because I have heard a million anecdotes, and you say you have not heard my school name called in it. But I've heard
not in this particular one.
Not in this particular one. I've heard it called in others, and I've gone and investigated. Nothing don't go so. You're going to hear a lot of things like that because people will talk. What I think we need to do is establish ground rules.
This way, I don't think nobody could blame you for this, Wayne, because this thing started a long time, When I was at JC in 1963, we had a coach there from England named Derek Tompkinson.
Yes.
Him started, We decided, Derek Tompkinson decided that we are going to win Manning Cup. And when he looked at the team that we had Mickey Mort, we had Peter Morgan, and decided that is not sufficient. He went and he took Warwick Lynn from Georges. He went to Poor Little St. Jago, and he took Everton and Derek Webb. He went to Cornwall College and he took Exdal Mignot. Then he stopped by Monroe and he picked up Alvin James. So we were putting out a Manning Cup team that about half of whom were importees. And we won Manning Cup 3 years in a row. Right? Now, that's where it started. But it has now become almost an industry.
And I say to you again, that, let's call it the industry, has to be managed by ground rules set by the people in charge of it. And again, I express confidence in ISA because not just because I'm a principal and a part of ISA, but I've watched ISA grow over the years and they've adjusted to ensure as much as they can there's equity in what we do.
You know what would be good?
There's a bigger problem in my mind, Well, go on. Sorry.
It would be good if ISA was a little more transparent, though. Corey Bennett told me, for example, that ISA maintains a database. So
yes, it does.
So it knows where the students are.
go. They know where they go. They know where you're coming from. You can't just register.
But it would be good.
They maintain a quota system.
It would be good,
has done a lot of work. Of work in managing, yes.
It would be good if when I was preparing for this program over the weekend, if I could have gone on ISA website and I could say, well, these are the number of students that were moved from one school to the next in 2021 or before COVID, 2019. Let me just see the extent to which this thing is taking place, whether or not Muggy Graham is just making a whole heap of noise over, right? Or whether it's a serious problem.
That's what I said initially, where the data coming from.
But that information exists, but I don't know that the public has access to it. Why not?
You certainly can get information because I know ISA has it, one. And I'm also saying that a lot of what is being said without data.
Well,
because I love speaking without the knowledge.
I love data, but when people put it in their back pocket and don't make nobody see it, I can't help that.
Yeah. So, again,
tell me a little about the quota limitations, though, because what Corey was saying was that there's a limit. For example, if you're fielding a Manning Cup squad,
yes,
there's a limit to how many importees you can have on that squad. What's the limit?
Meaning you're going to be guided by a quota each year, and once you transfer those students into your school, they remain on your quota system forever.
Yes.
So once you have 3 transferees, by the way, below 16, once you're below 16, the first rule is that once you come into the school at a certain age, you have to wait out a year.
Yes.
That's the first thing. Secondly,
shouldn't we make that 2 years?
Who are you trying to hurt? Are you saying that a child who has the potential, who comes into a school, should not be participating in sport?
No, he can participate.
Who are you trying to hurt?
No. He'd participate in sports. He would have trained, but you can't put on that school uniform to go represent those school colors until 2 years.
That opportunity for 2 years to get exposure out through competing for the school. Again, I ask, who are you trying to hurt?
Well, you see,
you understand why I asked that, though.
But if you take that argument to its logical conclusion, you should do away with the 1 year too.
No,
because you already have 1 year. I was simply asking whether we should move it to 2.
There are some people who say that same way like you just said a while ago. There are some people who say it shouldn't be done, but ISA is trying to get a balance. When Dr. Graham says ban all sporting transfers, that can't be a balance.
When you field a Manning Cup team of 11, how many importees you can have on that team?
You can have importees in sixth form that there is no control. In other words, you can have a Manning Cup team, right? Because once they're in sixth form, where you're going to have the control is below sixth form, which is 2. But
you can't have more than 2.
2, right? Well, but you carry the 2 with you, you know. So
and would you swear on your Bible that none of our schools is grabbing a student out of 4th form, and all of a sudden him just jump over 5th form and land into 6th form, so he's not subject to any quota?
So how him when produce the evidence of getting into 6th form? Where would he get the certification, the CXC that is required to be shown? For example, whatever the body, the city and guilds, whatever he took to get into 6th form, how did he qualify?
It's has to be shown.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Not just transcripts, your certificates have to be shown. And those have to be signed off by the principal.
Muggy Graham says that the ultimate solution to the problem is to establish sport academies. So we cut out all the Ron Jocelyn. If JC has a youngster who shows that he can be the next Ronaldo, then move him into the sports academy right away and develop that football talent, because that is his future. What's your view on that?
Long-term vision. That I'm sure that is in the pipeline somewhere down the line. Where we are now, though, is that we are managing with what we have. There are boys who leave and go to sporting, who leave with talent, who leave early and go off into careers that are preparing them for professional careers.
Why do you
are limited?
Why do you rebut the inference that Muggy Graham is putting forward when you say that? Let me express it a different way. When you look at the performance of the schools in sports and the performance academically, for for some of the schools, there seems to be a hell of a disjuncture. Why are you saying that in those schools, sports is not being pursued at the expense of academics? And he cited the case of Campion and Immaculate. He says those schools, not enough pretense. They are not there to win the Manning Cup. That's not their purpose. They're not there to win the boys and girls champ. They will enter, and if they come 8th or 9th or 11th, then they will celebrate that. But their job is to produce some students that have the academic grounding on which they can build a financial future.
And that academic meritocracy has its place. How many of the students can qualify for Campion? Even those who come to other schools like ours will transfer to Campion, say, if they get the best grades. Campion.
No, but his argument is, why is your focus not similar to Campion?
Our focus is so, but how many of our students are so inclined to that a career in music and sport and other areas are not exposed? They're not exposed to that. Are they all going to go to Campion and become doctors? Is that what we're going to have? An elite society of 100% doctors and lawyers? What happened to the rest of us? What happened to the rest of the technicians? What happened to the people who are going to go into sports management?
But weren't
sports is now a major issue.
But weren't we developing these talents long time before we started poaching? When you look at the Les Langs of this world, Les Lang, I think, went to which one? Didn't tell him went to?
But Les Lang represents the elite. I'm saying, what about the mass? What about the...
No, Les Lang was no elite, man. Les Lang was...
I'm talking about the best of our athletes when I say elite.
Yeah.
You're not going to... It's a very small percentage going to reach where Les Lang reach. But a larger percent. All these boys that you see coming doing these sports to get a 1 in PE easily, you know.
Yeah, but
they go on into
but
careers.
But that larger percentage is the one that I want to say, listen, you are not going to be no big runner or no big footballer. Learn your lesson.
But hold on, but you are going to be a sports... You are going to do sports marketing. You are going to be there are careers, so many careers now open in sports, management of sports.
Lord, Wayne, you sound like you're going the same road down that University of West Indies go. They're producing so much people in mass communication that they're going to end up communicating with one another.
No, that's not where I'm going at all. I'm just saying.
And we're not producing enough scientists, we're not producing enough engineers, we're not producing enough Kenneth.
And let us make sure we have the balance, Sir Bruce. I'm not going down the road of producing pure mass comm or pure accountants either. I'm just saying, let's not remove from them a pathway that is there. Sports and music has been Jamaica's leading international recognition. Have we done much about it? Think about music.
You have any? Yeah, well, fair enough. I mean, you know, but that's why we have Edna Manley College. That's, you go there and focus on that. But what we can't expect now is that every high school, in addition to the challenge that they have, which they're not handling so very well, to train the children and to give them the kind of academic grounding on which they can build a life. I can't ask every school now to start focusing in the same way that JC and Calabar and KC focuses heavily on sport. I can't ask every school, but you have to start focus on music now because that is a career opportunity for people as well.
I'm with you, you know. I'm saying you have to trust the people who you put in charge or put in the right people there. Our principals are in charge of schools and ISA. Trust them.
Well, don't carry me there. I trust some of you, not all. Don't carry me there. Here's one other issue I wanted to ask you. I was surprised when I was learning from Corey Bennett that each year our young athletes leaving high school, that between 100 and 120 of them get very hefty, lucrative scholarships. Because you know he says at champ boys and girls champs we have about 20 people here from universities in America recruiting.
Yeah, man, that is an understatement in some years.
How many JC boys we have had on those scholarships? We have a lot.
A lot of them. Our footballers especially almost all get scholarships. Yesterday I just learned a full scholarship, and by the way, the quality of these scholarships compete with the best of the academic scholarships. These scholarships are 50, 60, 70,000 US per year.
Yeah, that's a figure here. And these are to good colleges?
And these are to good colleges. So I'm saying to you, it is again, it is an opportunity that can't be just dismissed.
Yeah.
At Champs, each year, you have a whole suite of recruits who come looking at football. They come to JC especially for football. They come and watch us train and look for particular players. So it is something that takes place every year. And by the way, it's not getting better. It's getting larger because sports is more and more recognized as a pathway. A very big industry. So he's right. And it depends on the year and the numbers. But there are very big years when you see a whole heap of people here recruiting. COVID gave us a damper over the last couple of years. But again, not a little bit of people. In the year, and I'm not advocating for KC, but KC spoke about their 17 scholarships last year. We can speak about 12. Listen, there are scholarships all around. I'm sure Corey can speak up some for Heidel. I'm sure Edwin Allen can speak up some. And they're all around. What I'm saying is that we can't ignore this. Yeah. We can't ban it. It is a pathway for a number of Jamaicans. What we need to do is manage it properly. And I think I'm hoping that is what Dr. Graham is saying too, manage it properly.
Well,
not ban it, not ban sports in schools and ban transfers nonsense.
I don't know to what extent there has been a conversation about it, or whether it's just a matter that we kind of talking at each other rather than with each other.
Yeah.
But we perhaps need to have a conversation and really,
with some data.
Yes, because the argument has strong points on both sides, no?
Yeah.
And perhaps ultimately it's going to boil down to the management, as you are suggesting.
Yeah.
Wayne, I took you away from an important day and activities that you have, but I want to thank you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
That's Mr. Wayne Robinson, principal of Jamaica College. That seems to bring us to the end of the program. We have a couple of minutes to go, but let me thank all of you. Sorry, Miss Beauregard. I gather he kind of disappeared at 1 o'clock, but we'll link with him and we'll come back next week. Thanks to all of my listeners who joined us today for this discussion. The question of the poaching of student athletes in schools, that's what we were talking about today. The pros and cons of it. And I'm even more satisfied now than when we started the program that we need to look at it from both angles. Wayne Robinson is making a very, very important point that the development of sports talent is an alternative. It's a pathway. Some students are going to make it academically and they're going to become professionals in the various disciplines, but some won't. But some will become professionals in sports. So that has to be taken into account as well. We're not likely to get to the point where we have dedicated sports academies sufficient to cover all of that. But the management of it is what is critical. We're hearing about limitations in terms of quota restrictions and so on. A lot would depend on how vigorously those are enforced to make sure that the practice is not abused. But I hope you enjoyed the discussion today. Sports poaching in schools. That was our topic. We had some very useful guests. Lascelles Graham, Dr. Lascelles Graham, Dr. Donovan Bennett, Mr. Corey Bennett, and then finally Mr. Wayne Robinson. Thank you all for joining me. We'll be back next week Monday with another topic to do it all over again. Jamaica Live, Bridge 99.